Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to, I was going to say the Dear Little Scribe Show, but today we're doing Kings of Steam. It's great to see you all. We have a very star-studded lineup today. Thanks for joining us all. It's awesome to see everyone gathering around for what is sure to be an interesting show. So today is Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. And for the first segment, we're going to have the Kings of Steem, which is a live debate between fellow witnesses on this lovely Steem It platform we like to call home. And the lineup for today is Sir Cork and Tim Cliff. So once we get into it in a minute, I'll have Sir Cork explain a little about his witness situation, just so we can kind of give people a heads up. But okay, so we're gonna do the first hour will be Kings of Steem. It will be the live debate between Tim Cliff and Sir Cork. The second hour will be Luke Stokes, and that's just going to be a personal interview, kind of a get to know you. And between the two segments, we'll hopefully have Dream Steem on to talk about her new recruits for this week on the Welcome Wagon. And because of Carrie Allen, we can all thank her, I'm going to do a live opening of my latest booster pack for Steam Monsters. So stay tuned for that. And I wanted to go ahead and introduce our guests today, Tim and Cork. I'm just going to call you Tim and Cork. Does that work for you?
Yep. I prefer Sir, but Cork will do.
Oh my God. Well, you are a king for the day. Maybe I'll call you King Cork. And what I want to do is just maybe have you take a minute and talk about the merging of the witness situation that you have going on. And then after that, I will go over the topics that we will attempt to cover today. So Cork, why don't you take the air for a minute or two?
Okay, well, I know that we're on a short fuse here, so I'm going to try to burn quick. Basically, I had reached a point where I was on full tilt overload, and you guys heard it all the time. So I can take this moment to say thanks for bearing with me through a year yesterday on the platform. Thank you, Kenny Roy, for the cool video from all the Steemians that we just got right before the show, and we're all checking out now. And then thank you to my new teammates on the Noble Witness, of my existing teammate Rhonda K, now joined with Anarcho Andre and G Mux, which makes what was the Wonder Twins kind of into the Legion of Doom. The Noble Witness, is a group of people that are dedicated to the longevity of the platform, the future of growth on the platform, and to the people of the platform. Rhonda and I called ourselves the Witness when we ran under my name, Sir Cork. That was the team about lifting up voices through her writer's block work and my Steam Star Network and the You Are Hope Foundation and the other tools and things that we make in the publishing house and all the stuff about lifting up the people's voices in other ways. But now we've expanded and we're adding, curation. We have support of the veteran community between what Anarcho Andre does and what GMUX and I do by proxy through those programs that we support. We have TARC and You Are Hope. So much stuff that all goes together, and we're all in each other's communities, and we all realized we agreed on everything, and we all realized that I can be an asshole and deal with that pretty well. So we got together and made the supergroup.
I love how you went from Wonder Twins to supergroup. And
I wanted to get away from superheroes that I know nothing about and can't talk about very long to like rock bands. So now we're like, when they made the Sgt. Pepper's movie and they had like Bad Company in it and like Peter Frampton and stuff, that's like us.
So maybe spell out the name of your witness. And folks, if you haven't heard already, Sir Cork and what is his name? Anarcho Andrew, your cohort.
Anarcho-Andre. So we'll get them all typed out. I've got assistant teammate partners here that can type stuff while we talk.
Okay, so if you want to vote for Sir Cork or Anarcho Andre, you may no longer do so. They are a team, and
or
so.
GMUX.
Yeah, with GMUX and Rhonda K. So get into that if you need to. And then Tim Cliff is our other witness on today. If you'd like to vote for him, he is also just Tim Cliff. So let's get into it. Let's start with just listing some of the topics that we will attempt to cover today. The first one is, and by the way, caveat, just because I'm saying what it is doesn't mean I know everything about it, but I'll do my best to corral the conversations. So the linear voting algorithm that was implemented in Hard Fork 19, this is what makes self-voting possible, which is great if you're a minnow, but when you have trending page votes in the hundreds of dollars and the content is laughable, this causes some significant irritation for the rest of the community. Should this algorithm be changed? And if so, how so? That's question number one. Question number two is just the transparency of the voting witness page. And I think we'll easily delve into that. Question number three, I guess you guys didn't understand how I had that. I said incentivizing current witnesses to produce hard fork worthy content and development. All I mean by that is, in the olden days of Steem It back 2 years ago, what it seemed like was that a lot of the developers that came in were incentivized by the possibility of being absorbed into the blockchain and into the interface. And now it's not as much. It's kind of more difficult to get noticed. And so I wanted to know what you thought about incentivizing them, what we should do about witness pay. The fourth question I had was, Tim, this is kind of more your area because you're doing a hard fork coding right now. So we wanted to maybe talk about that, which is allowing developers outside of the core dev team with Steem It Inc., allowing them to perhaps do pull requests and development and coding that will change or be implemented into the hard forks of Steem It. So we don't just rely on the core dev, but maybe allowing other people to do so as well. And by other people, we mean obviously very qualified and skilled. And then the last issue I was hoping to cover would be transparency on the Slack, which is the channel that the Steem It Inc. and the top 20 witnesses will often meet on, supposedly for security issues, but the rumor has it that the other things are discussed there as well. We don't need to go into this as much because Luke will hopefully be covering that in the second hour. He does have some plans to implement that. So let's start with the top question, unless you guys have a preference on which one you want to go to next. I wanted to go to linear voting algorithm. David is the one who informed me of how this works, and I still don't quite understand it. But feel free to make comments here because I see you're here, and this is kind of your little thing too. But let's start with cork. And what do you think about the linear algorithm? And should we have a variation up 1, up 2, -1, -2? Do we need to change it so that our larger users should not be allowed to self-vote? What's your take on this?
Okay, so I'm going to be really straightforward and tell you that I am no economist. And so to really understand all of that at a molecular level, I think takes an incredible amount of discrete education in finance and economics and monetary systems. But what I do know is I listen to smart people. And smart people like Dan and Transisto and Team Steem and other whale-type money-making individuals who have made it somehow, however they got where they are. They're better off than I am. They all like N2. They like the squared model, the old curve before Hard Fork 19. And they want to go back to that. I do think things were better, although the price wasn't as stable. Now it's been pretty unstable since January. Well, it's been stably falling with some peaks, but I feel like things are skewed now, and I think it has a lot to do with the linear voting. And I think that the smart money is voting for N2, so that's where I would follow.
Okay, Tim, and you guys don't necessarily need to wait for me to give you the go-ahead. You're both pretty civil, but Tim, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like the Hard Fork 19 has contributed to the steady decline of the value? And if so, what would you suggest doing about it? You seem to be a little more like with your hard fork that you're doing right now. I feel like you have a little more grasp on how we adjust the voting scheme and how that affects the dollar. Am I on the right track?
So speaking for Tim, I agree with everything that Cork says. Basically, since Tim can't speak for himself.
Tim, I think you're muted.
He says, can we unmute him? Let me check. I have some kind of rights. Not server muted, not server deafened, not kicked or banned.
Yet.
But not talking. Wow. So that's okay. Give him a minute to reboot or something. And do you want to ask me a wacky question? Or you said you might have some wacky questions. We'll kill some time.
I do. We'll do some wacky questions. Then Tim, maybe step out and then step back in. Okay, let's do a wacky question. I will pull one up. Give me 1 second here. So, okay. Cork, if you woke up tomorrow, I have a couple to choose from. If you woke up...
Just give me the hardest one.
Okay. If you woke up tomorrow as Hillary Clinton, what is the first thing you would do?
Have an accidental shot in the back of the head, suicide.
Okay, or maybe if you woke up tomorrow as Jerry Seinfeld, what would you do?
Make jokes about the aforementioned shot in the back of the head, suicide.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's try this one.
This is quality radio, ladies and gentlemen.
This is quality radio. Cork. When it rains outside, this is really important element of your personality. When it rains outside, do you prefer to use an umbrella or do you risk going without and making a run to the car?
You may be right. I may be crazy, but I even ride my motorcycle in the rain.
So there was this study, I kid you not, a full-on study was done in Great Britain to determine whether you would get wetter if you walked in the rain a full block or if you ran in the rain in a full block. And what do you think the outcome was?
Running, because you're going to go faster and hit more raindrops.
That's what I would have thought, but it turns out it was the same saturation whether you walk or run. And the fact that they had to do this study and someone funded it is really sad, but that's what they did. So, okay, so what should we do about Tim? Should we try a different channel?
I don't know. I'm still waiting for somebody in the audience to get the Billy Joel reference I just dropped on him, and not a single soul.
I loved the Billy Joel reference. I should have called out on that. I love Billy Joel. What if we...
I mean, I just dropped that stuff in there. It was hard for me to keep a straight face through that one, actually.
Tim, what if you go over to the show control booth and we can all go hop over with you? Let's see what happens. I don't think
Does he have roles? What's his roles right now? Let's check his roles and buds out. He has no roles. Let's give him roles. Let's give him a host role. Now he can do anything.
Okay.
Tim, you can ban me right now if you want. We have equal ban power to make this a true equal debate or whatever.
He says it's his computer, so why don't...
He was so good a minute ago. I think we scared him.
Oh, I'm sure Tim is upset about that because he really wanted to talk. We should just talk about him right now. Ugh. Tim bugs me so much. Yesterday...
Oh my God. When I first got here, Tim was the first person I ever spoke to in my whole life on the whole platform.
Was he really?
Yep. No joke. I went to the help channel and there he was. Like a shining beacon of hope. And answered my question.
I feel like you and Tim hit the ground running, both of you. You just came you've been on the platform 12 months and you've been a witness for 11 out of those 12 months. Right?
12 months in 1 day, 11 months in 1 day.
And I think Tim was 2 months in before he started as a witness. Me, I just barely figured out the witness thing once I was thinking...
I didn't want to be a witness. Funny enough, hopefully Tim will come back and get some time in here, but I'll just let him talk the last half hour if he shows up. But I didn't want to be a witness when I started. It was actually pressure from management, so to speak, in the giant community I was in. to become a technical witness because they kind of felt like their witnesses weren't technical enough. Now they've got a couple that are really hot shit technically, but back then there was not so much. And so they wanted technical witnesses, and they pressured me to become a witness, and I did that like a month after I got here, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And thank God Dracos is here, because he's here now a year later, and still a great friend and a guy who saved my butt on that witness stuff in the early days a lot.
Did you see what Jack Miller just posted?
Oh, you mean Jack Miller's I hate Dracos post? No, but I bet Dracos hasn't seen it either. He'd be irate.
No,
Hey,
it
can you
says,
hear?
yes, we can hear you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I only have one computer where the sound works, and it's a horrible laptop, and it basically just froze. So I was able to be on my desktop and at least hear and type, but I had to wait for this thing to reboot for my mic to come up again.
That's okay. We talked about you.
The next question was, should a top witness be able to run Windows? Kidding.
I was just pointing out what Jack Miller posted. It said he did a mockery, like a mock-up of the Steem Kings thing, and it says under Tim, it says, I don't agree with it, so all I'm gonna say is it can't be done. And then under Cork it says, I'm not in the top 20. It must be Aggro's fault. And you've got like all these votes. Jack Miller, we love you. Okay, so
neither statement is far from the truth.
That was very modest of you. Okay, so Tim, did you want to talk about this whole voting, like the linear voting issue, and how we've had a steady decline since Hard Fork 19? Do you feel like they're related? What do you think the issue is? Should we change the algorithm so that higher ups cannot be voting themselves up all the time on crappy content?
Well, there's definitely a relationship, but obviously people associate linear rewards with self-voting, but self-voting and linear rewards are different. Basically what linear rewards does is it makes it so that if you get votes on content that don't have a lot of other votes, those votes are worth something, whereas with n squared, which is what we had before, it required a large amount of Steem power to be voting on the post in order for it to be worth something. And so there really wasn't as much incentive to self-vote, because if no one else would vote on it, then your rewards would be small. But with the way that the bid bots are working now today, even if you change back to the formula that we had before, people can stack multiple bid bots on top of each other and actually pass the point where there's a certain level, and it changes based on the activity, but if a post receives more votes in SP than that threshold, then it's actually going to be worth more with n squared, whereas if it's below that threshold, then it's worth more with linear. And so there's a lot of very large stakeholders and bid bots that are upvoting content for extremely large amounts of Steem power. What's interesting is if you switched back to n squared or some other form of non-linear, those posts would actually be worth even more than linear. So linear rewards itself is not the source of the problem, although I'll definitely acknowledge that it contributes to the fact that it's become a lot more prevalent. I feel that that there are definite trade-offs between linear and non-linear rewards, and I'm on the side that feels pretty strongly that even though there's negative things that come from linear rewards, I do think that the switch back to a super linear curve of some sort would bring different problems with it, and in my view, those different problems are worse than what we have today. I feel that what we have today can actually be corrected by community downvoting, which needs to be addressed. To me, the downvoting is actually the solution to the problem that we have today, more than switching the rewards curve.
So maybe what we could do is not so much incentivize downvoting, but not penalize downvoting, because it takes away from my voting power if I downvote. And that's part of the problem right there, is people don't want to waste their voting power on downvoting when they could be rewarding someone else that they think has value.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually one of the changes that I'm going to be trying to work on in the next couple of months, is to basically create a new voting power pool where users can basically, and if they do that, it doesn't use up their voting power that they would be able to use for upvoting and curation.
That would have interesting effects on people like Patrice, who have, I think, 1 million Steem power, which has been delegated to her for the express purpose of downvoting. And that would mean that it would essentially never run out. That would be kind of awesome in my mind.
Well, that's not exactly how it works. So right now, when she downvotes, it's using her voting power pool, which is shared between upvotes and downvotes. The change that I'm proposing is basically to have 2 separate pools, and so it probably wouldn't have any effect on her if all she's doing with downvoting, because it would just drain the downvoting pool as fast as it currently downloads the shared pool today. But for users who do both upvoting and downvoting, they'd be able to get more votes because all of their downvotes wouldn't be eating into the upvote pools.
That makes that's more logical, and that makes sense because frankly, Patrice's job, she is not allowed to upvote with the delegation that she's been given. But let's get back to, let's maybe move away from this topic since I am not as up on the economy of it, and apparently Cork says that that's not his forte. So moving on, let's go to the transparent witness list. Okay. This has been, I feel, kind of flogged like a dead horse, but it doesn't mean it's not a valuable item to discuss. And I think we can all agree that we should have all of the witnesses on the main page. In fact, Tim, last week, I think you said that'd be fine. We all agree that there are really only about 135 active, participating, engaged witnesses on the platform. We do have a list of like 400 of them. Cork, why don't you, actually, Tim, why don't you lead this one because Cork led the last one. Tim, tell us what you think we should do with the voting page. How do we handle the issue that no one's really listening? And by no one, I mean Steem It Incorporated, Steem It Inc.
So there's actually been some updates. Noisy, who's one of the mid-level developers, commented on an old issue and actually asked Steem It to take another look at it. And they've actually agreed to open up the witness page to 100 witnesses instead of 50. So I think there's been a victory there.
That is a victory.
That's the one that I said was really my biggest point of contention with Tim the last time that we publicly met face-to-face on Shadows Pub's witness forum. And I really had a problem with his response there. But, you know, Noisy produced the evidence that I had been anecdotally quoting, and he came to me and said, rally, and I said, let me call about 12 people.
So
I hit that quite hard.
I think there's still a debate to be had here, because I can throw some points of view out. I don't think I was ever really opposed to doing it, more than just I didn't think it was a beneficial change to spend time on. My view on it actually hasn't really changed, which is that I feel that for the lower witnesses who aren't getting enough votes, that the fact they weren't on the witness voting page was not their biggest problem. I wasn't necessarily trying to say let's not do the change, but I was trying to say that the attention should be focused elsewhere. And the main thing is that whenever you're a lower witness, working your way up is extremely difficult. I mean, it's probably, I almost want to say, more difficult than a lot of the newcomers trying to get discovered with content, as is also a very difficult challenge. But I think a lot of witnesses underestimate how difficult it is to actually move up the ranks and how much effort it takes.
Well, Tim, let me interject here, because what we're not saying, well, we should put all the witnesses on the same page because then they'll suddenly have a chance to excel in their votes. That's not what we're implying. What we're implying is that it should just be transparent and fair, regardless of how we get how hard it is. I mean, it's hard, but it doesn't mean that that's a justification for not putting them on the witness page. And as a matter of fact, as David says, it's not difficult. It's an interface issue. They just don't care about making the interface actually usable. And up here on Anarcho Andre, he says, honestly, if you could just list all the active witnesses, for heaven's sakes, that would go a long way to fixing that. I can't imagine it's difficult to incorporate the functionality into the list. Draco's here today. Draco made a list. All of them are, I mean, we just need to deactivate the inactives. People's votes are going to ghost witnesses. That's lame. Like, who thinks that's a good idea?
That was me, ladies and gentlemen, using my little scribe voice. So everything she said, yeah, that.
Tim?
I mean, I don't know. It's just hard to say that it's, oh, wow, it's struggle and all the struggle. Yeah, it's a real damn struggle if no one knows you exist. And it's a freaking opportunity for people to figure out who's available to choose from and then go investigate. But now today, they got to randomly luck out and figure out who's witnesses. And, I mean, people that I've known for a year still don't understand I'm a witness. And, but they go to that page and they vote for randoms off the top list. So getting to 100 was a win. But I'd like to see it complete with marked, which they're going to do. They're going to put in the CSS from Netuoso's poll.
Draco,
we won that day, so there is no argument there anymore. We won 100. I'll take it for now.
I'll take 100. I'll take 100.
Good people that are witnesses and have been as long as I have are down.
But still, even in the top 100, I think it's like 15% of them are inactive. So Dracos, you have my permission to drop a link both to your witness page and to the article that talks about the dead witnesses. I think we all need to have a little Dracos. So, okay, are we done with this topic, or do we want to talk about it a little more?
We don't disagree anymore. We got a compromise.
Sounds good to me. So let's move on to, and I think these two topics are similar in nature. And Tim, again, you and I kind of discussed this last week, which leads into the hard fork requests and pull requests that you're making. Last week, or was it last week? Yeah, Tim, you said something along the lines of, we really need to make it, or Steem Inc. needs to allow more skilled developers code for hard forks. Am I quoting you right? Do you want to elaborate on that?
That's close, although I think it was more the fact that Steem Inc. is not the sole controller of the blockchain. The witnesses are actually the ones who decide what code runs on the blockchain. Steem is just the main party that's currently putting in the work to do development for hard forks. And what I was suggesting is that in order to become a more decentralized platform, we should have more parties in addition to Steem Inc. contributing to that process and proposing hard forks for the witnesses to adopt.
So let me just...
To Tim's credit, he's forking the whole thing to build a capable replacement if it was to disappear, which it can't, but in theory, like condenser and all that. Right, Tim? Aren't you basically cloning the whole shooting match at this point?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, you were advertising, posting, writing about pulling the, I guess it was Steem D to try and create, I don't know if you were building exactly what, a repo or a clone of it somehow that should Steem Inc. dry up and blow away, you'd be ready to serve the gap. But I have a second question to that too that you probably know the answer to, which is, sure, anybody can write code for Steem D or for Condenser, but who are and the witnesses have to approve hard forks. We understand that. But who's the gatekeeper at GitHub that says that the pull request gets approved?
So, okay, now I understand the question more. Right now, if anyone installs Steemd or the Steem blockchain on a server, they typically are going to pull it from the Steemit repository, which they maintain. So they have full rights and approval over that repository. So from the perspective of a community developer, if I'm going to create a hard fork, I basically have two paths to take. The path of least resistance is for me to submit a pull request to the Steemit repository and have them accept it. But I have no control over that, and so if they don't accept it, there's nothing I can do to get my change into that repository. And so the alternate way would be for myself or whoever the community developer is to have their own fork of the GitHub repository, which is basically just a copy that has whatever changes that they want to make in it, and then go through the process of convincing 17 of the 21 witnesses, and that's out of the 20 top plus one backup, it needs to be 17 of them, convincing 17 of the witnesses to pick up that fork from the forked repository, and that would be a slightly more difficult process, but it could still be done.
Because right now, the repository that is available is only added to by core dev from Steem Inc. And what you're saying is we should have either the capacity for others to add to that repository or make a separate repository so that people can still have something to vote on. Because right now, even if you had a fabulous idea, you wouldn't have a repository to put into. Am I hearing you right?
Kind of. I mean, basically, Steemit controls the main repository that everyone uses, and so one option is to submit to their repository and them accept it. It's to create a clone or a copy of the repository. It just involves clicking a button. So anyone with technical ability can fork it, but then the difficult thing is actually making changes to your fork. And again, if Steemit were not to accept a change that was submitted to their repository, but the community still wanted the witnesses to accept it, the witnesses could basically just pull the code out of the whoever developer's repository it is with the changes in it there.
That makes it easier, because then I feel like one of the problems is, like you said, it's difficult to make changes because that requires someone to go in, mess with the code. It doesn't necessarily mean they're against it. It's just a very time-consuming, arduous task. And it sounds like you're up for the task.
Yeah, so it's definitely a very difficult process, and I'm learning a lot about it as I'm going through and doing it. And I think that's definitely an area where community developers and witnesses can contribute more than what they're doing today, is to actually get involved in the code and bring themselves up to speed and be able to actually develop changes for the blockchain.
Well, Sarge says it best. He says, this is quite the forking conversation.
Let me jump in there, because I'm watching Luke talk in the chatter box there, and we can probably unmute him if he wants now. But he's saying that, he'd like to see a foundation made up of respected people that are trusted in blah, blah, blah to be a thing. And all I'm hearing is take the centralized choke point we have now that is Steemit Inc. that controls the GitHubs, no matter how much we write code for them or no matter how much we want that code to go in, it may or may not. And that's not worth spending time on at $200 an hour at this level.
And that's where you were saying, who's the gatekeeper?
Then you got, but to Luke's point, committees and foundations in charge. It's just different centralization. You're picking a different government than the government you got. Maybe you pick them, which is a benefit, but maybe that goes well. Maybe it doesn't. So it's decentralized. We've got to figure out how to solve this another way. So I feel like what Tim's doing is actually the right thing, and I didn't disagree with that ever. So. I think more people should do that, and I'm in the camp that I think more of us should be running full nodes too. So
I feel like, Tim, you're just kind of eliminating the gatekeeper issue.
Well, he becomes another gatekeeper, but yeah, it's more gatekeepers, more gates.
Yeah, so I guess, basically where this ends up is either the Steemit developers are accepting hard forks from the community and merging them into their repository, or community developers are just creating their own forks and witnesses are pulling out of there, or there's some type of hybrid like Luke Stokes has suggested where there could actually be a designated third party, like a organization that would be in charge of approving things. But I guess the concern I would have with Luke's idea is that, even if we create an organization, then that's still a centralized group that gets to control it. And what happens if the community wants a change that group doesn't? To me, that it's just kind of a step away from where we are, but it doesn't necessarily get to the complete goal. I don't really know how this is going to evolve, but I think the first step is just even getting capable developers such as myself starting out the path of development. I think we're quite a ways away from the point where we really need to come up with a formalized process for it. There really haven't been that many people from the community who've been actively involved in the development. And so I think just getting that involvement is going to be the first step.
Well, I sort of feel like if you're actually doing something that's going to affect a positive change on the platform, and you have the economic wherewithal to kind of know what you're doing, and your top 5, top 4, people are going to listen to you. So if you're doing a hard fork change, I have a hard time believing that if you keep pumping those out, you're going to be ignored. At the very least, you'll be listened to. And one of the things that I've noticed, Tim, is that you do tend to listen to the masses. And so you're kind of like, I hate to say it, but you're kind of like what we were sort of hoping Andrarchy would be. Just my opinion. It looks like Shadow's Pub has a couple of questions. The first one is, Tim, she wants to know what hard forks you'll be working on. I don't want to get into that here, but what I would ask you to do is, if you can, maybe take a second and post a link to your latest update. I think you did it like 3 days ago, and you talk about the hard fork that you're going to be working on. And then secondly, we wanted to get into decaying votes and whether they'd be more productive at this point. But look,
Can I say something about decaying votes?
You can, but what I want to do first is do a quick little fun question. Are you guys ready? It sounds like you're ready.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, this is serious stuff, Cork. Okay, so I have a... sorry, Sir Cork. I have a specific character in mind who I would answer, but you guys may have a different answer. So my question is, which 80s TV show star do you most relate to or wish you related to, and why? Cork, you're first.
80s TV show star that I wish I related to. I think her name's Christina Applegate, like the chick from Married with Children that would have been a little bit older than me in the 80s. And she's still pretty hot. What's her name?
I don't know her name, but she has aged very well. I think I know who you're talking about.
You said I could either want to be like them or be near them or something like that. I'll take that.
You want to be next to them in groping distance. Okay, Tim, who would you be?
It's not quite a fair question for me because I was only 6. And,
I know. I thought about that, Tim. I did.
Shouldn't all witnesses be over 40?
So I'll answer a 90s TV star because I've actually started watching reruns of the X-Files right now, and so I'm really into that show.
So are you going to be Scully or Mulder?
Mulder.
Awesome! I had such a crush on what's his name? David. What's his name?
David Duchovny.
Duchovny. Huge crush, like huge, for years. Still do. I don't think I'll ever get over it. Okay, so I'm going to tell you mine. Mine's MacGyver because.
Good call.
And also Sir Cork, I feel like you would make a great MacGyver in a way. I think all of us want. I think we all deep down wish we were MacGyver. I do. I always am like, whoa, what would I do if I was like in the belly of a ship and I needed to get out? Or how would I escape a silo full of wheat where I'm drowning? Like, it's just awesome. Okay, so we wanted to get to decaying votes. Tim, I think you guys, I feel like we all kind of agree on this, but I still want to hear you talk about it. Let's start with Cork. I feel like you had something to say.
Decaying votes.
Sorry, can you give like a 30-second layperson explanation of it for those of us who are new or just coming onto the platform and don't understand what that means?
It's real simple. When we talk about votes in this context, we mean witness votes. And with witness votes, there's the problem that when a witness goes inactive for long periods of time, they retain their voters. If they retire and post as much, like Wackow did, they retain their voters. If GMUX retired like he did last fall, he retains his voters to this day, still finding voters that are still up, that he knows, that like know him, that they know he's not a witness anymore. They still vote. It's hard to get people to vote. So there's been a question of, should we relieve those votes somehow from these dead witnesses after a period of time? Some theories have been advanced. Decaying votes means that everybody's vote on a witness decays over time and basically expires, so that you'll have to renew the votes on a periodic basis, daily, monthly, weekly, yearly, whatever, some basis that is determined as re-voting. I'm against that. We have about 30% of the platform right now that's ever voted for a witness. And Luke makes this report about that, so there's data. And it's going up. It's going up. A lot of campaigning lately, but it's still like less than a third, like a third of the platform votes for witnesses. So we don't want to make them vote again if they're just actively here and doing their thing. Let's not hassle them. But I do think it'd be good to expire the votes on dead witnesses after 90 days of inactivity. They can come back and they can get their voters back. But if you let the people down for 3 months because you couldn't pay your bill or you quit or you got done or sick or tired or whatever, you haven't made arrangements to run your witness, you shouldn't be doing it. So I think those votes should be returned, and that's my theory. So I say expire the votes as opposed to decay.
And I have 2 quick interjections here. I think David was asking, how do we define active? And I define active as any witness who is running an active witness node, who is, they don't necessarily need to be even active on producing content for the platform. They're running an active witness node, and I'm actually going to be basing this information on Draco's definition of an active witness. So if you want to look at that in more depth, he'll explain, but someone who's doing a price feed, someone who's doing an active node, someone who has not voluntarily withdrawn themselves from a witness, kind of just the basic general definition of an active witness, not necessarily someone who's like posting and curating all the time. And so the other thing I wanted to say was, I get the need for deactive, or rather, I get the need for this issue going toward an inactive witness, but what about the fact that, what if we just make this an issue for all of the witnesses? So maybe everyone's witness vote decays over time. And I think this is kind of an interesting point, because then when you have someone who, say, voted for someone a year ago and then kind of forgot about it, or maybe they just haven't checked up on who they voted for, kind of like a congressman. They've only got 2 years they could be in party, or 4 years or whatever. So, Tim.
I think it's a terrible idea, and that's why I addressed it. Go, Tim, but I don't like it at all, because getting people to vote the first time is a bitch.
Yeah, but people change over time.
So if I could jump in here, I think this is a good debate topic, because I kind of have a fundamental disagreement with Sir Cork, and I want to try to articulate it well, which is, I'm not really opposed to the change by itself, but I'm opposed to the idea of the change, and let me try to describe why. I think it's no surprise to anybody that there's a very limited amount of developer resources to actually make changes to the platform. Steem is working on their priorities. There's myself and a few other developers who can work on changes. And this change that we're talking about here, I don't want to say that it's a bad change, but it's not that important. It doesn't really harm anybody other than the witnesses, and asking the limited developer resources that we have to work on this, in my mind, is missing the bigger picture, which is what are changes that we need to make that are actually going to drive up the value of Steem. And so here we have someone who's basically petitioning and making a really big deal about this change, when in my mind there's 100 other changes that are a lot more important, and we really shouldn't be wasting our time on this.
So what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, is yes, witnesses matter. Yes, votes for witnesses matter. Yes, the work they do matters. But the work they do isn't necessarily what we want to focus on?
Basically, in my mind, the witnesses are here to work for the platform. We're here to make it better. And in my mind, this is a change of making things easier and better for the witnesses. It's not something that's going to add value to the majority of the community, and it's not something that's going to add value to the token. And so trying to focus on this, is you have to choose what we're going to work on. And so if we're going to work on this, then we're not working on other things. And in my view, the other things that we're not working on are significantly more important than something that only affects a small handful of people, which in my mind are the employees of the blockchain.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. So you're saying, yes, this is an important issue. Yes, if we had endless, limitless amounts of development to put toward it, then sure, absolutely we would do this. But what you're saying is we really have to kind of focus our attention on things that will have a more impactful and immediate impact on the value of Steem and the blockchain. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So
Okay, so this might go debate style, because here's my question, really, honestly. I always shoot from the hip. Okay, so Tim came to me and said, Cork, I'd like to go on the radio with you. We're friends, it'll be fine. I said, yeah, that's cool. I'd be thrilled to do that. But he came to me. He asked me. He's a top 10 witness. I'm number 63 at the time with Ron. And and then Luke spent a lot of time talking with me. He's here to represent for himself as well, so I can call him out. There's a dozen witnesses in the room. I'm in the 63s. I just changed my name and increased the size of my team and dropped back to 70-something. And I'm turning off my own name as witness as soon as I get all my voters notified. Narco Andre's already turned his off. GMUX turned his off, but I've got voters that will freak out if I go inactive, so I'm trying to reach them. But anyway, and they're telling us that, you know, voters and the voting and the witness page and the stuff about, you know, whale-sized voting and all these different positions that we've come across today. Tim's been on the side of, and don't really change it. It doesn't really matter anyway, or, you know, it won't help, or it was hard to get to, whatever. There's always a reason not to do it. But my feeling is why? Why am I number 63 and I've got 2 top 10 witnesses so interested in talking to me? Why are people concerned about my opinion? Is my opinion scary because these people are in nice, comfortable positions? Is there tinfoil on my head when I suggest that? That they're up there in the top 20 and they don't want anything to change that? And not only that, Stink has to get SMTs to market or they're in trouble. They bet the farm on that. That's all they're doing. And if they don't get them through, then they're done. And guess who has to let them through the gate? The top 20 witnesses. 17 of them. 14.7 or something like that.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
So I would love to see more competitive witnesses. In my view, there's a lot of room for people like Follow BTC News to come in and basically kick ass and do a whole bunch of awesome things and push people who are not doing as many good things for the blockchain or not doing their job as well out. I don't fear competition. I like it. I think that, I'm always going to do the best that I can at my job, and I hope that the voters appreciate that. But if more people come along and are doing a better job, then that's how the system is supposed to work. As far as me debating you, it was more, I've noticed our opinions have clashed quite a bit, and, it seemed like having an opportunity for the two of us to talk would be a good thing to do out in the open.
Well, here we are, and it looks like everybody's looking, and everybody that's here is a freaking witness, like all of them. So don't let off any EMF bombs near this room.
I'm over here. No, don't get little scribe. So then we have, it sounds like not necessarily a fundamental disagreement, because Tim, if you could, you would suggest that a decaying witness vote would not be a bad thing. So we do agree on that. It's just a matter of, do we focus on that right now?
Yes, and just to be clear, I don't necessarily support the specific implementation of a decaying witness vote, but something but in general, something that with proper precautions in place would take votes away from witnesses that are clearly no longer active. I'm not opposed to the change. My fundamental disagreement is just on the fact that we really shouldn't be spending time focusing on this. There's way too many other more important issues that we should be talking about, as opposed to this thing that only affects a very small handful of people who are supposed to be working for the blockchain.
So let's rewind a little bit to one of those really big issues. We've established during the course of this show that Steemit Inc. is the gateway to pull requests. Steemit Inc. is the gateway to anything going into a non-forked version of the blockchain, meaning the core blockchain, unless we make our own copies and go start our own blockchain. And then we can, at best, hope to get some of that stuff in where it doesn't threaten anybody or cause any problems for them. And at worst, hope to never get anything in. And I've heard more than one developer say they're not going to spend $100 to $200 an hour developer hours developing on speculation. And then to know that that control point exists, and to say that we need to focus on what's important. Well, it seems to me that what's important is making sure there's 20 witnesses who are paying attention to that little choke point and making sure that shit goes in, or saying we're not going to release any of your hard forks until you start accepting the stuff that people want. That's what we're waiting for, right?
That gets kind of contentious and muddy, but it's interesting. But what development is being done right now that is being blocked by Steemit?
I mean, to go to specifics there, we could go back to what it took us a year to get changed when you hear that all of the people saying that it was important to them to see all the witnesses. It took us a lot of fighting to get that done, and finally we were able to prove it with Noisy's documentation. What we had all been saying, we had heard anecdotally anyway when people got to the 50 page. So he produced the evidence. Yeah, suddenly his votes went from once a week to once a minute. It was crazy. And, so we proved that getting on that page was important to awareness, and then we were able to win the compromise. So that's one. But this debate over, which way into or in linear should go. There's two pretty strong camps there, but clearly what we have now is not making users happy. We go back to what Luke knows and has exposed in his conversation with Sneak at Steamfest, and which I know you're privy to, is that we have, an 8% per year retention rate and a 92% attrition rate of user signups, and Steemit doesn't care. Now, we, the users, are building shit anyway, like Steam monsters, and props to Agro and company on that. It's making them a ton of money. Great, that works out. At least it's a clean business. We got all this stuff going on that's happening despite Steam It. But, and they say, oh, you sit around and bash Steam It. Well, we can't do anything about it. Luke and I went round and round on this. How much money do I need, says Luke. I said, well, not enough in the world, because I can't buy those developers' opinion and make them take hardcore changes that people want. So why would I spend time developing them? Because they're not going to get it.
I'm going to suggest stop pointing the finger at Steem It. This is a decentralized application. It's an open source project. Any developer with competency can create a hard fork change and convince witnesses. I don't want to underplay how difficult that is, but
it's starting EOS difficult.
No, it's not. The problem is building consensus. That's actually where the majority of the difficulty lies, is that even if you have a good idea, you have to basically convince 17 of the 21 witnesses that it's a good idea, and you have to convince somebody with the technical ability to make the change to do it. So, a developer such as myself, I've got a little bit of an easier opportunity for that because I can do the work, so that eliminates the having to find a developer, but I still have to convince this 17 out of the 21 witnesses in order to accept it. And there's a lot of changes that I've thought were good and I've proposed them, but I haven't been able to build consensus on them. And I don't blame Steem It for that. There's a lot of various opinions on what's good and bad, and just getting consensus in a decentralized way when there's so many various views on what should and shouldn't be done with the platform, that to me is the challenge. But I don't see Steem It as the gatekeeper of the GitHub repository as the thing that's standing in our way from doing additional work to make the blockchain better.
So you're saying that where Sir Cork says that the GitHub gatekeeping issue is not the real issue. The real issue is simply being able to convince everyone in the top 20 that your idea was a good idea and that they need to help you implement it.
Okay, so here's how you can do that. You can go petition for that in the super secret, not so secret, super secret Slack channel that Ned moderates, and you got to have Ned's permission to be in. And Ned is in all the time, and apparently goes on witch hunts of well-known top 20 witnesses who've confessed to me that they've been hunted down in there by Ned Mormon. And I've got people in there telling me what's going on to a point, and they say not much happens in that channel. And the big thing is that it's private because security, which is funny because it's open source code. But ultimately, I think the witnesses have the right to be in that conversation, just like they have the right to be on the page. Just like I think in a national election, some schmuck like Gary Johnson that's high half the time and doesn't know where all the countries are has the same right to be on the stage if he got the freaking petition signed to be presidential candidate. That's how it works here. So I think if you're on the ballot, you ought to be privy to the conversation and on the ballot.
And I think we're going to cover that a little more as well, because Luke is sort of all over that, and maybe you guys can talk it out. But speaking of Luke, I am reading one of his comments. He says, I like a decaying witness vote given a certain voter participation. We're at 70% SP if we exclude Steem It Inc. companies. If it falls below, say, 50%, then we could turn off the decay. A little more complicated, but it would take care of some of Gandalf's concerns, which I assume would simply be we don't want it to just decay forever. And Tim, you talk about the decaying issue as not a prevalent or an important issue. And yeah, I see what you're saying. It is not really directly affecting the value of Steem right now. However, my whole thing is, and I know you're going to agree with me on this, is we do need to have some kind of incentivization for those who are really working hard for the blockchain. Yes, we have to work hard to get to the top. It doesn't mean that if we're not incentivized, we're not going to get there. But I want to say that if we fix the deactivation issue on the witness page and we deactivize those votes and decay those votes can go to other witnesses who might feel a little good about themselves if they can work their way up, if they can see actual progress.
That's not really true, though. So first of all, any of the dead witnesses are not receiving any blocks. So essentially, they're not in the list of witnesses that are going to be receiving blocks. And if the person who has voted for a dead witness has their votes automatically removed, it's not automatically going to get assigned to an active witness. They would have to go in and actually vote for the active witness.
Yeah, you make good arguments. Yes, they're not necessarily getting blocks. And you're right. They're not necessarily going to get the vote that was taken away from them. However, what if there was an indicator that said, hey, your vote was just deactivated. Maybe you should put it somewhere else, A. And B, just because we want to move up on the chain doesn't necessarily, or just moving up on the witness chain doesn't necessarily mean that we need more blocks. Yes, we want more blocks as a witness, but just being up on the list, it means a lot to people. It's not just about, oh, I got one more block an hour. It's about being up closer to the top where you can touch and feel the aspiration of, hey, maybe I can make some changes someday. That's what I think it's about.
Well, so we've got 5 minutes here. Cork, is there any specific thing that you want to spend the last 5 minutes on?
Nope, I made my points. Go for it. Take the time. I get time all the time on the radio.
I don't really have much to say on that specific subject. I guess I've already made my views clear, and at this point I'd just be repeating myself. So is there, do you have one other question you want to ask to end the show?
Yes. Question, and on a light note, take us into Luke laughing.
I did have a question, Tim. You were talking about your upcoming, and I'll try and make it quick, talking about your upcoming hard fork and how you're basically going to be, you'd probably explain it better, but you're basically going to be stretching the, I can't even remember the word, but you're essentially kind of working your way toward getting rid of the SBD or the US dollar peg in a way. Like a lot of people are kind of suspecting that that's the direction that you're going. Is that right?
No, it's actually the opposite. So the changes that I'm making are in support of trying to reinforce the peg and make it work better.
Some people think we should eliminate the peg. What do you guys, Cork, where are you on that?
I honestly went back and forth for a long time, and I have pros and cons to both ways. Like there's short-term thinking, let SBD spike, but it's not. Long-term thinking is we need a token that equals an easy currency to convert to marketable products in a unit that people can understand. Whether it's a euro, a dollar, or an SBD, it's one. And tomorrow that item is still one, a Coke or a coffee. So that way you're not every day like, oh, a coffee is 0.96 SBD, the next day it's $1.27 SBD. Not $1 anyway, but you know what I mean. So, yeah. I think at this point I believe in a peg because we gotta fix this economy. I'm no economist. Something's broke here.
So go ahead, Tim.
I can answer real quick, which is I think there's basically 3 paths to go. One is do nothing, just leave it the way that it is. The other is to try to fix the peg. The third is to basically phase out Steem dollars. There's valid arguments.
I'm all for number 3, really.
And I don't have any super strong opinions one way or the other. I lean most strongly towards fixing the peg, and that's basically where my efforts are today. But if the majority of the stakeholders were of the view that we should just phase out Steem dollars or just leave them be, I could be convinced to go that way as well. Although, like I said, right now my preference is to work towards trying to fix the peg.
I would right now with the current setup fix the peg too, but I'm all for getting rid of SBD and simplifying everything. People can understand one currency and it going up and down like stocks and other cryptos do. I think they can figure that out. But I think that it's hard to explain to grandma why we got 3 kinds of money.
Yeah, I'm doing it with my dad, and I don't.
SMTs, it just confuses things. My dollar spends in a Coke machine or a fancy restaurant. I don't have to have 3 different kinds of money.
So we're coming up on the hour, Tim. I'll let you go. I know you had to be out on the minute. So thank you so much for coming today. It was a pleasure hearing from you and listening to the back and forth. And is there any last comments you have?
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's been fun, Cork. It's been great talking to you, and I think it was a good show.
Make sure you go check out Tim Cliff's recent developments. Go to his user page, and if you like what you've heard, go ahead and vote for Tim Cliff. And if you like what you've heard from Sir Cork, then make sure you vote for, what is it?
Noble Witness.
Noble Witness.
High School rocks. Noble Witness.
Okay, let's go to break. I don't have any special music for you today. I had something queued up and it fell through. So we're gonna just jump straight to Dream Steem. And Cork, you're welcome to stick around for the next half. I don't know if Luke and you want to talk at all.
I'm going to dip and heckle. That's what he did to me.
You're going to be a troll. I'll mute you.
Luke was trolling me with stuff I was going to say anyway. So now I'm going to come on and say all the things Luke's going to say right before he says them.
I'm sure you are. Okay, we're going to have Luke Stokes on in the next hour. We're going to get to know him a little bit and maybe talk about some of the issues that are important to him. And in the meantime, we'll take a few minutes to talk to Dream Steem, and then after that, I'm going to open my latest booster pack from Steem Monsters, which Carrie Allen got me hooked on. Thank you very much, Carrie. Love you. Okay, so Dream Steem, are you there? I think I need to unmute you again. No, you're unmuted. You might need to unmute yourself. Maybe push to talk. Try your push to talk button.
Yep, that's what it was. It was push to talk. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So how are your newbies doing this week? Guys, just a little intro. Dream Steem is running the Welcome Wagon, and she took it upon herself to help orient newbies to the blockchain so that we can work not just on retention, but quality content producers. And we really wanted to kind of work from the ground up, from the inside out. So what do you have for us today, Dream Steem?
Yeah, well, this is our 4th week in the 4-week cycle at Welcome Wagon. So we call it our senior week. And we invite all of the previous recruits from the past 3 weeks to come back, and they get to basically get one more week of hands-on support and question and answer sessions from our Steem peers and our staff. They participate in various challenges that are kind of, they're kind of designed to push them out of their comfort zone. If they come in and they're writers, then maybe we want to give them like a photography challenge, or maybe throw a little poetry at them, just to give them a little sense of, hey, you know what, you don't have to be a one-trick pony here. You can do other things on Steemit. And then the last, we just want to give them one final chance of just having that feel of they did this together. They are our first class, and they named themselves, and just to get to know each other, talk to each other, and make a real connection, so that when they're off into the Steemit world, they still have those people that kind of remember what it was like to be newbies, and they have that friendship. So that's what we're focused on this week. And then next week we start our 4-week cycle all over again.
And I don't want to embarrass you, Dream Steem, but if I notice there's a lot of witnesses here today and successful Steemians on board today. So if you get a chance, go take a look at what she's doing, see if you can give her a little vote, or more importantly, vote for some of the newbies that she is helping to sponsor. And do you have any noobs names that you want to drop in here today?
Yeah, I do. If you want, I can just type them all out and just leave it. People can go check them out if you want. That'll probably be easier.
Yeah, go ahead and type them out. And what we try to do with the Welcome Wagon is we don't just vote to vote. We really do try to focus on whether the content is original and quality content. We're not just doing like a circle jerk vote. These people have been specifically handpicked and recruited to be in the program because of their authenticity. So if you don't like what they're doing, don't vote for them. But if you do, please do. And I think that's basically the summary that we have for the Welcome Wagon today. Thanks for coming on the show every time, Dream Steem. We love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Thanks so much.
Okay, now I'm going to switch over to my Steem Monsters. Here we go. I actually changed my desktop view, so we're on the Dear Little Scribe show now. And the Steem Monsters. Here we go. All right, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm streaming through steemstar.net. That's STEEM star.net. So if you want to see me open my booster pack. I'm doing so this very second. All right, I got a rare clay golem, which I think I have one of those. I got Silver Shield Paladin, which I'm so excited about because I don't know if you guys know, but Agrode, who is the author of the game, he's just swamped and would love to write the backstories for all the characters, but obviously can't. And so what he's done is he's created a writing contest for all writers on the blockchain to come and work together on teams. And he's segregated us into the teams that represent the colors and the splinters, which is what they're basically like lands of the world that he's created. And so I have joined the white team. And the main character on the white team is the Silver Shield Paladin. I don't know how to pronounce it. Paladin? I don't know. But anyway, I'm so excited because we're going to win the contest. I feel in my bones. It's just been so fun because I'm working with Chris Roberts, who's Carrie Allen's husband. Carrie, you probably didn't even know that I was on that team. I like basically got on it last night. And Sim Girl and I were going at it until like midnight, just coming up with a plot for the backstory for the white team. So,
hey, little scribe, may I interrupt this bulletin to bring you this very important radio show?
Sure.
Hold on.
Paladin.
Any of the 12 peers of Charlemagne's court, of whom the Count Palatine was the chief, a knight renowned for heroism and chivalry.
Paladin.
Carry on.
Okay, everyone is probably repeating it in their heads. Everyone say it out loud. Paladin. So, okay, so that's my second card. Let's go back and see. My next card will be the Goblin Shaman, who is common. Shaman is common. Next card is Spineback Wolf. Ooh, that one's awesome. And I don't know, is that a rare? I feel like that's, who can tell what color that is? I can't tell. It's purple, which means, what's the word I'm looking for? Epic. Is that epic? Did I get an epic card? I feel like I did. Ah! We'll find out. Anyone who knows, let me know. And for the, ooh, okay, no, this is an epic card. I did get an epic card. I guess the Spineback Wolf is not epic, but I got a Screaming Banshee. And she is definitely epic because it's all glowing in purple. Okay, so I officially have 3 epic cards. I think that makes me feel really awesome right now. And if you want to go check it out, I actually don't have the link to that. I'll drop it later, but you can go check out whatever everybody else has. Okay, thanks for joining me on my Steam Monster adventure. And I think we're good now. All right, so next up to bat is Luke Stokes. Who's adorable, Ads David? Are you saying I'm adorable? Or are you saying Dream Steam's adorable? I think Dream Steam's adorable. Oh yes, it's Dream Steam. Hey, Dream Steam, didn't you guys just do a meetup in San Diego? Like, who was there? You were there. I know that.
Yeah, it was just me and Marianne West, and we had a really fun time. And she posted a picture of me, even though I'm anonymous, on her post. So
I think your anonymity suits you. I think that's a great approach. It's just kind of like your personality. Like, you're sort of the behind the scenes. You don't need to be flashy and out there and showing yourself. Like, you're just kind of cool like that. I'm the other hand. I'm like, I want people to know who I am. Like, it's just a personality thing, but also I think it suits the thing that you're doing. By the way, it's so funny because when I was going to do the Welcome Wagon Up boost, the Boost Me post this week, I actually selected Marianne West because I liked that she had this little Steam It meetup down in San Diego. And I was like, this is really well written. She did a great summary and a synopsis. And then all of a sudden I noticed who she met there. And I was like, oh, I can't pick her. It's going to look like we're colluding. So I had to like not select her. I'll maybe wait till she does something later and I'll pick her then. But it just goes to show, like, Dream Steem and I are kind of on the same page when it comes to looking for good content and good content providers. So, okay, thanks for joining me. Now, oh, there's Dream Steem. That's her wave. Hello. Oh, and look at the ocean. It's so gorgeous. So, who out there is doing the Steem Monsters game? I'm not kidding. Like, I've never done anything like it. I know about like Magic the Gathering, and I have friends who do that. I've never done anything like this. Like hardly even did Pokemon. And we're gonna get to Luke in a second, but I just have to get on this. So I see this thing, and I'm like, I was on Carrie Allen's Mission Control Monday show, and she did this quiz show, and I won the show, and so she gave me a free booster pack as a prize. And like, I don't know what happened to me. It was kind of this crazy thing happened in my eyes, and I turned into this like monster, and I have to get these. And if I didn't have any restraint, I would be spending all of my Steam dollars on that stuff. So I'm starting to collect them very slowly, and apparently they will add value over time. The games don't even start until September, and I'm crazy about it. I'm already writing the backstories and getting involved, and it's just crazy business. I don't even know if I'll even be good at the game. But if you guys are interested, just go to steammonsters.com /# and sign up and get a booster pack, get a starter kit. It's like $5 total for both. So anyway, okay, so let's move on to Luke Stokes. And Luke,
Hello.
Okay, I was going to say, are you there? Thanks for coming on the show today, Luke. I appreciate you taking the time.
You're very welcome. Glad to be here. It was a fun conversation listening to Tim and Cork as well.
I know, it's kind of funny because I feel like the time flies really fast when people get going on these issues. I could go all day, but I guess we only have so much time in the day. So you just got back from a conference. I wanted to talk about that, the Tulip Conference, right?
Yeah, it was great. I got asked to be on a panel discussion about block producer economics systems, and I'm part of the launch team for EOS DAC, which is a member-owned, member-driven block producer candidate for the EOS blockchain. And there was a lot of different perspectives represented. There were people that had a whole bunch of VC funding, people that were self-funded. Our model, which was an airdrop of a useless token that was free for people that want to have it. And then all of a sudden the market said, wow, we like this idea. We don't want to sell our useless token, and the token became valuable. So Blockmaker Limited, who airdropped the token and gave it away free, ended up giving some to Blockmaker Limited, and we then had funding. So
all because you showed up.
As far as me at the conference, no, all because we just, had an idea that is beyond its time. Everyone who's been in the space for a little while understands what a DAC is, a decentralized autonomous community. And that's really what people want. That's the solution for so many centralized problems we see in the world with governments, with corporations, with nonprofits. And so we want to be not only an example of that in the real world, but we want to build tools to enable other DACs. So going to the conference, it was amazing. I was privileged to stay in like the VIP Tulip House. There's about 15, 16 of us, including like Nathan James of Scatter and Kevin and Blue Jays, who do the EOS radio show, and a bunch of other really amazing people. And it was just awesome. It was incredible to be in that environment as EOS itself was launching. It was one of the most amazing experiences I've had. It was really cool.
So you were saying there were like 15 of you in this penthouse suite kind of thing, or what was the deal?
It wasn't exactly penthouse. I think I slept
like
on the
hostel.
couch. I think. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was it's San Francisco, so it's extremely expensive. But I slept on the couch. Nathan James slept on the couch. I think one day he slept on the floor. It was just kind of like whoever got there first got to grab a room, but we had an amazing time. And we didn't sleep much at all either, because every 12 hours there was these video Zoom calls with 100-something people from around the world giving a go or no-go on the EOS chain itself. And those were, you want to talk about drama. Whew, those are amazing. And
yeah, that sounds really thrilling.
It was really thrilling, and it was intense too, because things are changing constantly. Like, we're getting new code we have to review right then, and people are like, just give me a go, no go, and we don't have the information to make the decisions. And David Moss is out there like messaging Dan Larimer and Block One developers in real time as all these people are waiting for data and answers, and it was amazing.
That sounds so cool. I wish I could have been you then, I think. And didn't you say you were losing your voice? Was it just from too much talking, or it was just kind of a coincidence?
Yeah, it was probably a little of both, but no, I was definitely talking a whole bunch. But one thing that I wanted to talk about as far as me being at that conference, and this was really amazing. It was just like you have one connection with someone that you think, oh my gosh, that could have made the whole meeting worth it. And I ended up connecting with Phil Master of Object Computing, and they've been contracted for over a year by Block One to do a lot of the development of the EOS blockchain code. And their contract is up, and so I was kind of talking to them about, hey, there's a lot of people on Steem that want to do some really cool stuff. Would you guys be interested? And so I actually have a call scheduled with them tomorrow morning, and we're just going to talk about what are the opportunities available to us as a community to get some stuff done that maybe isn't on the radar for Steem Incorporated. And so I'm really, really excited about that. This is some of the best developers in the space. They built some really cool stuff, and so we'll see how that conversation goes, and maybe in the future there'll be some opportunities for us to kick in some money and make something happen.
Well, it's interesting because you're a witness for Steem. I don't know what to call it, Steem or Steem it, because we're talking
Steem. Absolutely call it Steem. I wrote a post in a while back that Steem it is not Steem. Steem is much, much more valuable than Steem it, and I hope everybody reads that post. It's a good way to get set on what is what.
You should plug the post here. So you're a witness for Steem, and then your DAC, which is semi-equivalent to that, for EOS, right?
Yeah.
So we're basically producing blocks for both. And what's interesting is that I know one of the criticisms that you've gotten a lot from a few folks anyway, like from Cork and some of the rabble-rousers here, is that we can't serve two masters, right? You can't serve Ned and Dan at the same time, not just because they're different blockchains and automatically competing, but because the two split and there's just so much dynamic there. Could create insider information. It could create conflicts of interest. But what you just explained to me, being at this conference and a representative of both teams, kind of makes it sort of a compounded bonus, because you're there on EOS errand, but you're able to accomplish a Steem errand. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from you?
Yes, I think anyone who's been an actual Steem witness for a significant amount of time, especially a consensus witness, and has worked through what a when I say consensus witness, I mean one of the top witnesses that actually define consensus for the chain. I think they recognize that all these concerns about, oh, you'll have insider information, did this, that, and the other. It's just, in my personal opinion, it's just a level of not understanding what's actually going on. Individual Steem witnesses don't have the power to break anything. They have to follow the protocol of consensus. And if they were to do anything bad, they get voted out. That's the entire thing that makes DPoS effective. So everything that I can do and every value that I bring to any project I'm involved in is a combination of all the value for everything else I've been involved in up to this point. So I bring ideas from Smart Cash, I bring ideas from BitShares, I bring ideas from any cryptocurrency or any project in the space that I'm excited about. And I've done this for more than 5 years. I mean, there's things I've learned from Bitcoin. The reason I'm in DPoS is because I learned that Bitcoin doesn't have on-chain governance, and we really need that. So I think the concerns, I'm fine with people having concerns, but I get a little worried when people start making their decisions about who to support on a given blockchain, not based on their actual value production and output to the community and the chain, but based on some perception of some future concern that may or may not be there. Because if we start scaring away our best witnesses because we don't like that they're involved in multiple projects, and by the way, most of them have been involved in every graphene chain up to this point, but if we start scaring them away, we're going to be left with a chain that's not as valuable. But if we show up and they're like, oh, wow, this is the guy that helped be involved in the early launching of EOS, and he's also on Steem, they'll bring all that together. We have world-renowned experts that are going to conferences all over the place. I mean, I'm not saying I'm that person yet, but if we have that elevates all of Steem for everyone, and I think that's a good thing.
I guess then because I'm kind of in your camp, I have to admit, like I think there's more added benefit and more potential for a better networking possibility having a foot in both camps, like not camps, but like on both blockchains. You have the experience and prowess that you got from Steem that you can bring over to EOS, which in my mind, I think competition is good, and anything that we can add to compete with Steem is going to be good, because then those who are in charge of the consensus votes and coming up with hard fork changes will have to make decisions as to what we need to be doing that someone else is doing better. I think that's a good thing. But having someone who, like you, is doing both, like you're a witness here and you're a DAC there, I can see that as a really positive thing, because you're able to contribute. Hey guys, this didn't work in Steem. I've done it. It's crap. And then in EOS, you can come over to Steem and be like, you guys, guess what EOS is doing? Let's try it. Does that sound like an accurate depiction of what you might be able to do?
Absolutely. I mean, many of the discussions that were just had with Tim and Cork were things that EOS has already been thinking about. For example, witness voting decay. They already have that. They have a foundation that the community is setting up to manage the GitHub repo. So right away, we already have solutions that we, as a Steem community, should consider implementing. The big one, I think, is the repo. Like we are not pulling code as block producers on EOS. We're not pulling code from the Block One repo. There is a community-driven repo that we're pulling code from, and that's done by us. Now, is it a point of centralization? Yes. So that's why they're working on an actual tokenized system to vote in foundation members and all those stuff. And right away, there were people trying to do a power grab with that. And that's where we have to step in and be like, no, your only job is to manage this repo. You get no other influence whatsoever. So these kind of things are very valuable when we're learning from all these other projects. All of these open source projects learn from each other. Every time there's a breakthrough in one place, we can implement it in another place. And I think that's always a really good thing. And I want to comment real quick to Jack Miller's point about opinion. I say in my opinion on certain things because I don't want people to be like, oh, you're just saying it like it's fact. Yes, we absolutely have to make our votes based on realities. And my point is, I think there are people making concerns about these collusions that are not based on realities. As my year of being a witness, that's just not what I experienced at all.
Well, I think that the consensus vote, it's 67% or 17 out of 20, 21. I think the consensus vote really does put in not a complete foolproof method of anti-collusion and anti-corruption, but it does certainly put a stop to any easier attempts. And if anyone ever were to do something that's sleight of hand or insider trading, you would actually have to get away with convincing all 17 or 17 of 20 witnesses in order to implement whatever it was you were trying to do. So that would be suggesting that all 17 are corrupt. I have a hard time believing that would ever happen.
And more important to my point is, like, if we want to talk facts, I always ask people, what is the specific thing that you think a witness or even a group of witnesses could get away with? Everything is on the chain. Nothing that you can't.
I was just going to say that because you come over with something, the only thing you could provide Steem or vice versa would be something from like a secret Slack conversation. And I highly doubt you're going to jeopardize your sharehold in a company to give to another company on a security issue or some kind of breach or some kind of development that's about to come, when you would lose out by doing that. You would only lose if you were to share that with a competing company. That's how I feel, but I could be totally wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, the idea that we would somehow compete against each other in some malicious way is just, to me, ridiculous. I mean, again, the people who are not part of the top consensus who deal with, for example, security issues, they don't realize that somebody from BitShares will be like, oh, hey, guys, I just found this out. This JSON parser has a serious security vulnerability. You guys need to upgrade this as soon as possible. And we all go, oh, my gosh, yeah, you're right. We understand that a rising tide raises all the ships. We all working together using a lot of the same open source code. And so, we do work together. This is the reality, but it's not collusion. It's not some kind of like evil, like, ooh, they're doing this and we're going to do this and we're going to screw them. Not at all. I've just never seen that in the 5 years in this space. I've only seen it when there's off-chain drama. And this is, we've talked about this with Bitcoin and the mining farms and the different, block size debates where people get pushed out of repos and things like that because they don't have a way to manage it well in a decentralized way. So I'm going to focus on adding value to the chain. And if people don't like that and they don't appreciate that, that's fine. It's not up to me to decide whether I'm adding value. It's up to the token holders. But ultimately, it's about what are we doing to add value? If someone's adding value, they should be in. If not, then they're not. It doesn't matter what they do outside of their official witness rules, as long as they're not breaking any community agreed ethics, essentially. And that's where it really gets a little bit sticky. Some people think that this is like a business where you're on multiple boards and it's a problem. It's really not. It's a different job than a business.
Okay, so you made the reference of behavior outside the actual blockchain, and that reminds me of when Dan left, and his comments were, I am going to go make a Steem 2.0. And that's what he did with EOS. And everyone knows. I mean, Draco says, LOL, come on, Dan versus Ned, Steem versus EOS. Want me to draw you a picture? It's not like we're not some kind of a nemesis going on. I mean, personally, me, I don't care. I'd do both. But Dan, his primary goal was when he started EOS, and still seems to be, taking down Ethereum and Steem, or not taking them down, but like taking predominant users to his platform. I mean, how do you refute that?
I wouldn't say that's his goal. That's not his stated goal. His stated goal has always been to build tools to protect life, life, liberty, and property. And what's interesting is recently I noticed he's added life, liberty, property, and justice. So I think part of the EOS ecosystem is about the Ricardian contracts and the Constitution and all these kind of ideas, so that there would be some form of justice, because he feels maybe wronged by the traditional justice system. But I don't think that's his primary goal, to take down Steemit or BitShares or any things he's done in the past. His goal is to build something powerful enough that can support as a platform all the other things he wants to build to reshape society in a more voluntary way. That's my perception.
I don't think he wants to take down BitShares or Steem, and I recant that. What I mean is he wants to take them on. Like, okay, bring it. And yes, we'll all flourish maybe, but he will bring what most people consider to be very viable competition, to the point that our dollar value will go down.
I don't know if I'd say will go down. I think it might be the best thing that's ever happened to Steemit. Like, we need some competition. I agree. I think Ned often, goes on and on about this, how amazing everything is and this head start we have, and how the Steem blockchain is going to be so much better because it's like specifically designed for social activity. If that's true, then awesome. Everyone will see it and be like, wow, Steem is way better than we thought it was. And so is Steem, because EOS is trying to do it, and look, they can't pull it off. And on the other side is, if he's wrong, he's going to have to start going, oh, dang, I better start spending this money to hire some really serious people who have industry level global experience on massively distributed systems and get this thing going, plus some amazing UI UX people, plus, and make this thing awesome, because otherwise we're going to have our lunch handed to us. This is all a good thing, in my opinion.
Well, David says EOS wasn't about replacing Steem. Dan wants to build a Steem clone on top of EOS. That's the reason.
Are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me? Oh, sorry. Oh, I was pushing the wrong push to talk button. Okay, so David says EOS wasn't about replacing Steem. Dan wants to build a Steem clone on top of EOS. That's the recent comment he made about the matter. So on that note, yeah. Okay, so we have healthy competition with Steem. At first, I see the dollar falling. I'm sorry. I see it falling, but I see it as what you were saying, healthy competition is going to provide not only incentive, or rather impetus, to drive us forward to a higher plane, but also, as EOS is going to be on the blockchain just like everybody else, and you're going to have open sourcing, what's to stop a great witness or coder or developer to come and pull some of the successful things on EOS over to here? I know the one thing EOS has that we don't is they're trying to implement wider use case. So basically like BitShares and Steem combined, as well as others.
Yeah, I think that's I'm a developer. I've been programming for multiple decades, and it's a common misconception. Like, oh, it's just copy paste, right? You could just take this code and just drop it in and like.
Not exactly.
I want to make it clear that yes, concepts can be brought over, but oftentimes they may take 6 months to implement, depending on how complex they are and how much retooling has to be done. So I do think there are things he's doing. This is part of the reason he didn't just reform Steem into the image he wanted. I think he tried, and I think Ned and some others pushed back a little bit. So he realized, again, I don't want to speak for Dan. I don't know his motivations. I try not to speak about others' intentions because I only know my own. But ultimately, it's about, there's going to be a flexibility possible with EOS that allows a lot of cool things we've never heard of before. You know, when I think about EOS, I think of it as like the Amazon Web Services of blockchain technology. You can just build whatever you want on top of it. Now, that may not be a good thing for media companies that just want it to be plug and play, everything figured out, online registration, voting, you know, comments, posts, and that's it. You know, they may not want to be told you can do whatever you want. They want to be told how to do it right. And Steem may flourish because of that.
I kind of have to agree with you on there. I made a post like 6 months ago on, or no, it wasn't 6 months ago. That was my SMT post. I made a post like maybe 4 months ago. Maybe it was 6 months. I don't even know. I can't keep track anymore. It's all blur. But I did make a post that was a little bit doomsday because I was freaking out. I'm like, EOS is going to take the feet out from under Steem. We need to act now. And now, but after I've had time to process everything, I'm like, you know what? Competition's always good. I don't care what happens, competition's always good. I feel like, especially from the father of Steem, who came up with the whole project, who's coming over to EOS to develop something that's a viable issue and everybody kind of believes in. And both Steem and BitShares BitShares are doing so well. I can't see it as being a real problem. I think though competition will, I do think it will kind of make us a little nervous in the knees, a little wobbly there for a minute, but and like, because like you said, you can't just copy paste code. You're going to have to take a good 6 months before things are implemented. Things take time, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I would just hope that as a, not just you, not just me, not just the community, but as a species, I hope we can get past the like emotionally freaking out about everything and get to the point where it's reason, logic, and evidence, and we can actually decide, okay, here's where the data is leading us. Whether we like it or not, that's what it is. Let's set our expectations appropriately and not get too upset, you know?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get there as a species. I'm sorry.
We are making progress, though. I mean, go read some Steven Pinker. We've come a long way.
I hope you're right. Well, so Luke, I want to take a minute and do a fun trivia game. Are you up for it?
I am, but I'm just so not creative. We'll see how it goes.
I'll tell you what, these are, you don't actually have to answer. It's just more like yes or no questions, and you're probably not even going to know the answers. These are more for the listeners. Okay?
Oh, sure, go for it.
All right, so the first question, I have 7 questions. Question number 1, do goldfish really have a memory of 3 seconds? And guys, you guys can comment in the chat if you want. I'm going to do it Carrie Allen did, and I will be offering free Steem Monster Booster Pack to the person who gets the most right answers.
I would just say that I don't think goldfish have a brain developed enough for some response we could even call memory. That'll be my answer.
Oh, that's actually a very creative answer. I would have thought the same thing, but in fact, they actually can recall previously learned information for up to 5 months. Crazy, right? Shadows.
Did they tell us that? I wonder how we knew that.
I know. I'm like, what did you put them through a maze with cheese at the end and then go back and put them in the same maze 5 months later? I think it actually was something like that, to be honest. Okay. Who got this one right? Did anybody get it right? Idakuchi said no. I'm going to have to go through and, okay, not provable. Odrow says not provable. I think goldfish scientific studies are very provable. Okay, question number 2. Which animal is known to kill more people than plane crashes?
Mosquitoes.
Ooh, that's a really good guess. Carrie Allen, you've been on the same page I have. It is donkeys. Hippos is also a very great guess. I would have said like sharks, but really there aren't that many shark bites. But it is donkeys, and I think it's from being kicked, right?
I bet mosquitoes kill more.
You know what? Maybe they don't consider mosquitoes as animals because
Ooh, good call. They're bugs.
Because like I would say like what living creature has killed more people, and I think then you would be correct. It would be mosquito. And by the way, like 2 years ago there was this whole conglomerate of international health conglomerates who were going to try and eliminate the mosquito in certain parts of Africa, and there was this whole debate as to whether we should be messing with the ecosystem like that. And I was like, dude, kill the mosquitoes. I'm sure you're aware, they were going to insert a bunch of...
They do like some genetic engineering there. So I'm for it as long as we don't get the runaway problem where we don't know what the heck we're doing anymore. Also, I guess another thing for this question is, do we count humans as animals? because they probably kill more than plane crashes too.
Ooh, see, look how clever you are, Luke. Well, I don't think they count humans as animals, but humans are animals. So, I don't know. Like car crashes, guns, poisonings, slaughterings. I was listening to, I was watching Jerry Seinfeld and his show. Have you ever seen the show where he does this driving in cars with coffee or whatever? The comedian.
No, I haven't seen it. I keep seeing it pop up on Netflix, but I haven't watched an episode yet.
Okay, I know you're short on time in your general life, but I'm telling you it's worth it because the episodes are like 20 minutes long and they're so good. They're like super personal. It's basically a talk show. Like he's basically not on stage. He's in a car and he talks to people and then they go to coffee and they talk. And it's funny because all of his guests are comedians. And so they're all so quirky and unusual and funny. Anyway, he was talking about the whole mosquito business and actually I just lost my train of thought because you said something that made me think of it and now I can't even remember what it was. So it's totally irrelevant by now. But if I think of it, I'll let you know. Yeah, he drives in a car and gets coffee. The thing I was saying about the mosquitoes though is that what they did was they would sterilize the male. And then so essentially there was nothing really done to the mosquito other than a sterilization process to like a certain mass of mosquitoes. They would release them on the population and eventually the mosquitoes would just kind of by default exponentially die out themselves. So nothing was changed about them other than they were just not making babies. And so that was kind of the safer way to alter a mosquito without really altering its genetic code. I thought it was a great idea, and I don't know if they did it or not. I haven't followed up. It's been like a year.
Well, we all saw Jurassic Park, so whenever they think they got an answer, you never really know. But that kind of relates to how I think it's funny we make our opinions on things based on fictional narratives. We do this really often.
I agree, Luke. I think we do that. I think we like to be frantic and worked up and scared and freak out when really we just need to look at the facts. I'm kind of like somewhere in between. Like I have my knee-jerk to stuff, but then like my husband will show me the news and like my initial reaction is, my knee is jerking right now. And then I'm all, okay, well, let me look into it. And I'm totally one of those let me look into it people. I just am. I have to look into it for myself. I got to know.
Citation needed. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, next question. How long is a kangaroo baby when it is born?
I'd say 3 inches.
Very, very close. It's actually smaller. Any guesses? 2 centimeters? How long is that? Jack Miller guessed 2 centimeters. Excuse me. 35 inches, Carrie? Are you serious? That's like 2 feet. That's like 2.5 feet. 3 feet. 1.5 inches. You're getting close. Anybody want to guess? It is almost an inch. Jack, we're going to give it to you. It is an inch long. That's like this big. A baby kangaroo is that small. It's so weird to me. It's almost like it's still in the womb, frankly. Like it kind of still is because it's in the pouch and it never comes out until it's a certain size and has a certain amount of hair. But anyway, so yeah, it's 1 inch. Very good guess, Luke, but I think we're going to have to give that one to Jack. Jack should know. Ha ha. Okay, question number 4. If cats are feline, dogs are canine, sheep are bovine, then what are bears?
I thought cows were bovine.
Are cows bovine? Did I get that wrong?
I'm not sure. Bears are scary? That's what they are.
That's correct. Ding, ding, ding. You win. I actually, when I was about 12 years old, my family went camping in the woods and I was in my own little tent, just me. And then my parents were in another. And anyway, there's 5 of us. I have 4 siblings and we all were just kind of spread out. And like the middle of the night, I hear this kind of snorting, like, and I woke up and I thought, what is that? What is that animal? Is it like a warthog? Is it a cow? And then it occurred to me that it was a bear. And I just remember simultaneously feeling like I had to pee my pants and I could not move and I could not breathe. And I remember its snout like nudging into my tent and I thought I was going to die. So then with like what seemed like an eternity, which was probably only like 30 seconds, my dad gets up and he scares it off, but not before he took a picture of it. And so we got a picture of the bear, and then he showed it to us the next day, and it was this cute little cub that was completely harmless and just wanted to eat our watermelon.
Yeah, with my mama bear right around the corner about to kill anyone who looked at her baby the wrong way.
Very likely, very likely. However, it just kind of goes to show what your imagination does in the middle of the night when you're 12 and in a tent and scared of bears. Anyway, the answer is ursine. That's Ursine, ursine. Does anyone know if sheep are bovine or if that's cows? I could have maybe got that wrong.
A lot of cow references, so I think it's cows. But there was a lot of Ursa-related answers that were pretty close.
I think that you guys all tried hard. I'm going to give it to you. Just like gold stars for all of you. If I have 5 gold stars, I'll give them to you. If I ever find a gold star, you guys all get one. Okay, question 5. What is the dot over the letter I and J called? And you may actually be able to figure this out if you think like Hebrew or biblical. That's your hint.
Ooh. I don't.
Ask David, you are not correct. It is not a dot.
Sure.
But it rhymes with... Oh, no, it doesn't rhyme with dot.
Something to do with scribe, maybe? I'm not sure.
It's a tittle. There's jots and tittles. And in the...
Ah, yes. Every jot and tittle. Yep.
Yeah, you got that? Tittle. Tittle with a T. 2 T's. Number 6.
Oh, Dracos. Not exactly titty. Not exactly. But
Not titty, Dracos. Not titty. Tittle. With an L. Ask David likes dot better. I guess we could call it dot for you today. So number 6. Can you lick your elbow?
I cannot, as a personal human being, but I won't make a reference to another person who might be able to, who used to be a top witness.
Okay. Well, so I tried to look it up, and I couldn't find any evidence for or against. But I did find something that says it seems there are a few tricks that can help you accomplish this act. I don't know what they are. But question number 7 is, did you try to lick your elbow after hearing the previous question?
I was thoroughly tempted to try, but I've heard the question before, and I remember as a kid trying, so I didn't.
But you did one time in your life try to lick your elbow.
I sure did. As a child.
I did the same thing, only I did it last night when I was looking at the question. I'm like, wait, can I? Like, is there a way? I think there probably, if I could turn it, just, I don't know. I don't think my tongue is long enough. So, okay, I think that we covered all of the questions for the day. And I'm going to probably just have to go back and look. Carrie, have you been keeping track of who answered any of the questions? I don't think anybody answered. I think the only one who really came close on anything was Jack. So, Jack, are you playing Monsters or Steem Monsters? I'm going to send you a free booster pack of Steem Monsters. And then if you don't want it, then you can just give it to someone else, I guess. See? There's that. Or Jack, tell me who you want me to give it to. How about that? In the show, who do you want me to give it to? You can let me know and I'll do it. So, Carrie Allen answered donkey. You know what'd be funny, Carrie? She's like, it's rigged! Carrie, it would be really funny if I gave you one because you gave me one on Monday. I think oh, and Sarge answered tittle with D's. So, okay, maybe we should do like a tiebreaker between Sarge and Carrie Allen. So, Luke, let's see.
Yes.
Maybe we could come up with like 2 truths and a fact. Do you think that you could come up with something like that and then whoever wins gets the prize?
Oh, we could just talk about Steem too.
He's like, I don't want to talk about me.
No, I could talk about it. It's just I'm just passionate about Steem and Steeming, and I know a lot of people are too. And it's like, yeah, it's the stuff I love talking about all the time. But
Same.
truths and fictions and whatever, that's fun too.
Yeah, it's true. And that's why I have you on my show. I do like to kind of toss things up a little. But you know what? I actually did have a question for you. If you want to get back to Steem, we totally can, because I had a question for you. So,
Go for it.
and I forgot to ask it in the time where we were talking about EOS and Steem. And I know that another way that I've heard criticism toward people who are doing both witnessing for Steem and for EOS is that they're just hedging their bets. What's your response to that?
I think that there are some that will do that. I think, again, back to my original answer, voting for a witness should be directly related to how much value they bring to the system. So if somebody's not bringing value to the system today, then you change your vote today. You don't do it based on something potential in the future. At least that's my perspective. If someone's providing a bunch of value, then you vote them in. And I say this all the time. If there's 30 other witnesses that are providing more value than me, please let me know about them, and I might adjust my votes. But I'm doing what I can, and I will continue to do what I can. And I already demonstrated prior to Steamfest 2, if I feel like the train's getting off the rails, then I'm going to raise a ruckus, as I did with Steam It, going, dude, your site's broken. It's been broken for 2 weeks, and none of your developers provably are even using the site. I can look on the blockchain, and they're not eating their own dog food, and that's bad when it comes to software. And they didn't like me saying that, and they got very upset. But I was right, because now they're blogging every week about what they're doing. They're actually using the tool that they're building, and I think that's a beautiful win for the community and the system. So you can go back and read that if you want, and all the comments on it. But it was basically is Steam eating their own dog food. But I hope people make rational decisions based on the value they see. Now, a part of that too, and this is kind of one point I wanted to talk about. We touched on it earlier briefly. Was the idea of transparency. This is a open blockchain that has some communication of value happening in not so open ways.
Which is exactly, you totally read my mind, because that's exactly where I was going next, because along with that dog food post, you mentioned calling out Steem It Inc. for not doing what they should be doing. And you said to me the other day that you have a solid plan to make a more open, transparent line of communication between the people making decisions for this platform and the rest of us. You've been talking to Ned about what you can do to make the Slack open, or maybe coming up with something that we can sort of either broadcast or publish after the fact, which I'm a little bit reticent about that latter.
Well, let me talk about it a little bit. So I did bring this up to some of the witnesses in the dev Slack that Steem It Incorporated runs, and just said, hey, because here's what I see. I'm in this Slack, and I see some amazing, passionate people that will go for hours and hours and hours, and sometimes days, debating some really complicated issues. And when Tim Cliff was on earlier and he said the problem is consensus, he's exactly right. Because these are really difficult, complex systems. You don't get the opinion of the guy who cuts your grass on how to build a nuclear weapon. These are really hard. And some of these people are incredibly smart, smarter than myself. And we're all working together to try to figure out how we don't have unintended consequences when we change an already advanced, complex, moving system. So we see the responsibility of the multiple millions and billions of dollars relying on this system. So we got to be careful. This is important. So what my proposal is kind of, and then also too, there is a reason to have a private communication channel for when there's an immediate security bug that has been responsibly disclosed. You need to get the consensus witnesses to fix it immediately, and that could be done with KeyPass. That could be done with other systems. So maybe what we have now is not the best way to do it. The point is, there's a ton of value being created in those discussions, and nobody but the people in those discussions sees that value. So one, they can't vote for the witnesses that provided the most useful input. And two, the rest of the cryptocurrency ecosystem can't see how intelligent our community is, how amazing some of our witnesses are. And I want that value to be out there. I don't want it to be just, said once and then lost forever. So what I proposed was a channel in the...
So I want to interject, because your motivation sounds twofold. Number one, you would like the masses and the people and the investors to hear the value behind the scenes, so that maybe it'll eliminate some of the questions and complaining, frankly, but just so people really know what kind of what these people are working on. And secondly, I think, well, it's similar, but I think it's important for the rest of us to hear what is going on, just for a transparency matter of fact. I mean, they're kind of similar, but a little different.
Yeah, but they're related, because if we have the transparency and people, it's easy to put up a post and complain about something. It's much harder to sit there and listen to, read through 4 hours of intense intelligent debate from people that are smarter than you, like, oh, they're smarter than me, and I'm trying to just barely grasp the conversation, and then actually recognize, like, okay, these guys are working on it, and they're working on it hard. So, guilty parties, you asked, what is the solution? The solution I proposed was to have a channel that the entire Slack knows this is public channel. Anything you put in this channel will be put on the blockchain. And then what you do essentially is everyone who's involved in all these valuable conversations, you say, hey, can I have your permission? Maybe there's 3 people and they go on for like, an hour debating something. Do I have your permission to take this text of this conversation, drop it in that channel? And if they say yay, then you say sweet. And we go ahead and we put it out in that channel. And then either it could be automated or it could be a daily process. We take the text from that channel and we put it out on the blockchain. And guilty parties, that's exactly the point. That's why I want to bring this up. I want to know if people care enough to actually go through and read all these discussions so that when they're like, this is going on or that's going on, they can actually provably say, no, this is what's really going on. Here's what we're really talking about. And if you want to read through, a couple hours of debate or discussion, then you can. But yeah, I agree. I think these discussions should be on chain, but there are some discussions that have to happen in real time. Nothing of what we're doing right now in this chat, as an example, could happen on the chain effectively. I mean, especially voice chat and things like that. So we got to find the right tool, the right medium for the right information being transferred. So I think it's at least a step in the right direction to capture some of this value, put it on the chain, and then people can start discussing what's going on. Now, some people aren't comfortable with their kind of, brainstorming ideas being put on the chain because it might keep them from talking about ideas. And
yeah, that was the other question I had, because
yeah.
There is an issue with brainstorming. A twofold issue. Number one would be, you're going to want to censor yourself, and brainstorming cannot be fully a brainstorm if you're feeling under scrutiny. And number two, what if someone did say something that was sort of damaging, and it wasn't intended to be damaging, but it was just sort of a thought or something that kind of ruined a share or an investor's opinion of Steem?
Yeah, and this is definitely the concern. That's, things we say as quote unquote leadership of the blockchain as witnesses could impact, investor perceptions. And this is a very valid concern, but it is also, to me, a differentiator between those who are who are taking this responsibility seriously and understand the power that they've been given, and they actually step up in a leadership role and do the right thing to lead. And I agree. ShadowPub says that, it's amazing what some people spend time on. Holy moly, the amount of posts that people spend complaining on something. Well, if they actually go and read through all the discussions, they might actually have more informed posts, and we might get a better consensus quicker.
Well, I think somewhere that there would be a solution to solving both issues, because on the one hand, we can't make it completely and totally public. It's just not viable. At least some conversations are not viable, not the brainstorms, not the deeper issues. Maybe they should be, maybe they shouldn't be, but it's just, people aren't going to be frank. They're not going to be uncensored. That's just the way it is. That's human nature. On the other hand, there are enough of us here who are intelligent beings on the platform who I think deserve to have, or maybe we don't deserve anything, but it would be nice, it would be good PR to give something to the minions. So, like, for example, when Andrarchy was hired for his communications position, a lot, if not all of us, kind of thought that he was going to be that guy to be like, okay, here's what we're thinking about. Here's what we're talking about. Here's what we're doing. And all we've ever heard from him is, sorry guys, we don't have anything. It's just SMT. And you know what? Maybe that's all it is, but it's disenfranchising for the rest of us who kind of are used to him being this really go-to guy. And now he's just sort of sounds like a little bit of a talking head, when maybe that's not his intention. My suggestion is, what if we do something like the White House press, where only select individuals are invited into the room, and they are then allowed to produce, publish, whatever, in regards to what's taken place in that room, and they're given that permission based on how delicately they handle the information. It doesn't mean they're censoring, but there is a certain level of decorum that comes with a prestige of journalism that you're not going to get from everyone.
Yeah, I think it relates to Dunbar's number, which is like the number of like meaningful relationship and connections you can hold in your brain at a given time. And if you just have 1,000 people, it's very difficult to have a meaningful conversation. And it also relates to Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule. Like 20% of the people are going to be really vocal and coming up with all the good ideas, and 80% of the people, who knows what they're going to be doing. Some of them are going to be trolling and this, that, and the other. So it's there's a lot that goes into this, and I'm not saying that this idea I have is the best solution or the only solution. It's just one that I feel no one else is even bringing any. So I want to start with this, let's say, and maybe create an account that's just like, the Steem Dev Slack, open something or other, and then we just start posting to it and see what happens.
I think
and as far as there's a couple questions here. The video recording, there's no video, it's just a chat, it's just a Slack, and sure, you could do DLive or DTube. I think that would be interesting, but ultimately this is just text conversations. And back to the other thing we were talking about, as far as like, also Guilty Parties had a question about like the official script and things like that. I think Andrarchy has done a really good job getting Steem Incorporated to communicate. And go look at Steem blog. They post about every week now, and they're professional, they're well organized, and they're informative. And I think that is a big win that we didn't have before. And that's hats off to him, because prior to that, he was the only non-developer in the entire company, and he had to work very hard to get enough buy-in for people to do that. And I think he's done a good job with that.
Okay, we'll give him some props for that. I'll go check it out.
But like right away, the fact that you guys don't read that every single week and make your whole show about that is really surprising. Like it's complicated, technical, detailed, insider information, exactly what Steem Incorporated is doing. That should be the focus. If we're just browsing over that saying, oh yeah, I don't even read those, or I don't read them 2 or 3 times, then it's like, how can we possibly have an opinion about what Steem is doing?
You're right. And actually, I have no room to talk. So I'll check it out, and then I'll make a complaint if I have one. And I think you're right.
Beautiful, because that's what we need. We need more people actually being informed than making complaints. This is a process. It's got to go in a certain direction, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think you make a very legitimate point. And so what we can do is look in that direction, see what we can do with that next show. Maybe I'll have you back on, and we'll look and see what Andrarchy's posting.
And to reply to Jack, no, Jack, you're not hearing that. I'm just saying what we have now is Slack textual conversations. Doesn't make sense to have them as live video feeds. I'd be totally happy with that. I actually, if you go read through some of my older posts, I was like, they should have live video feed cameras in the Steem office, so people know there are people working. That was something I asked for a long time ago. They should actually broadcast all of their internal meetings, in my opinion. But it's just not their company culture right now. Maybe it will be, and maybe we don't care. Maybe we'll move past Steem Incorporated and we'll have other developers building the Steem blockchain, because it's our blockchain. It's not Steem Incorporated's blockchain.
I think baby steps here, Luke, and I think that's what you're about. I think what we expect from the communication standpoint is what we're doing here. Like Jack just said, he can see a video, he can hear voice, he can see the chat here on my show. I record it, I post it the next day. What's so hard about that? Yeah, it can be done. But are we there yet? Maybe not. But we can start taking steps in that direction to help put people's minds at ease. And I think if it's a positive experience on both ends, it will only improve from there. And I think someone in your stature, expertise, prowess, whatever, your experience, I think you would know the nuances of what's important and what we need to smooth over time.
Well, I'm certainly trying to add value, and I think a lot of people are, and all from different angles. I'm not to say that my approach is the best one. It's just one of many, and that's what's the beauty about this. We're all going to try things, and we'll see what works.
So I think we might just end on that note. Look, we're up against the hour. It's 3:57 here. 2:57 here. I'm in Pacific Standard Time. I think we're at 9:57 in Greenwich, and then we're going to be 5:57 Eastern Standard Time. It's been really wonderful having you on. I just really enjoy talking to you. I find, I don't know, I find it really stimulating hearing all your ideas. I like intelligent people. I like the kickback you're getting from the audience here. I think we have some really good discussions that we've had. Is there anything that you would like to end on in our last minute or two?
Thanks. It was fun being on the show, and thanks for all the audience for having me. And I just would say, whenever you see a problem, by all means point it out, but also bring a solution. Bring 2 or 3 solutions. If we're all just pointing out problems, we go nowhere. We have to point out problems and solutions. And if you don't have the expertise to understand a solution, you may not understand the problem. So let's all work together to bring solutions